Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we're going to be looking at the ISU-122S. Now, I wasn't going to do a review of this, but it goes off the store tomorrow, and I've had a couple of people ask me, in fact the latest one, and I do apologise if I've got the pronunciation horribly wrong. Powell Broder, possibly, so I do apologise for pronouncing the name wrong, but he asked me if I wouldn't mind doing a review of it, so seeing as it goes off the store tomorrow, here we are. Now, in the store, it is, let's have a look. Right, we've got 7,200 for the fully loaded with 3 pieces of equipment: gun lane drive, tank gun rammer, camo net, usual mix of shells, 7 days of premium, and of course the ace op and a garage slot. And you've got the loaded, which is 6,000 gold, and that comes with the garage slot, the gun lane drive, mix of shells, 3 days of premium, and of course the ace op. Now in the Tankopedia, sorry, its listed price is 4,750 gold, so you are paying 1,250 more, but you are saving 14% on the other stuff that you get with it. But I believe they do possibly count the premium shells as obviously costing gold, but I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me on it. Now, earning potential, it has a 35% silver bonus and it has a 20% XP bonus, and I said a week or two ago, possibly, I think it was, that I don't really like this tank and that I prefer the SU-122-44, and I'm not saying it's a bad tank, because it's not a bad tank. I just prefer the play style of the SU-122-44. It's just more manoeuvrable, it's a bit stealthier, slightly less DPM, but the frontal armour is a lot bouncier because it's got a very, very good angle to it. And I just prefer the play style of it. Now, that's not to say this is a bad tank, 'cause it's certainly not. Now, I think it's got the second highest DPM in the game, although I could be wrong on that. It could actually be the highest, but I think it's the second highest, like I say. And it is essentially the ISU from tier 8, but down at tier 7 and premium. And instead of having the big troll cannon, the BL-10, it's got a 122mm mod 1944. Now, you can get this gun on the normal ISU. Now, this does have a slightly smaller engine, but it does have better traverse by, I think the ISU is something like 18 degrees or 21 degrees, sorry, fully upgraded, and this is 27, so it does have a better traverse. Even though it's got 100 less horsepower, it more than makes up for it, it really does. Now, let's have a look at the gun first. So, like I say, it's 122mm D25S mod 1944 with a very good rate of fire at 8.10, 175 penetration and 390 damage, which is very standard for these 122mm, these Soviet ones. 217 on your premium ammunition with 64 and 530 penetration and damage on your HE rounds. Aiming time is 2.9, which isn't too bad actually. You could be looking at, I think that might be a bit less possibly than the sort of heavy tank equivalent, but we'll check that in a moment. And 0.41 accuracy. Let's just compare it. That's why I've got the IS-2 here, so we can go into that, because it's basically using the 122mm D25, but this is the T instead of the S, and that's got a rate of fire of 4.8 with a 3.4 second aiming time and 0.46 accuracy. So you can see there it nearly has double the rate of fire on the 122S. It's got a much better aiming time by half a second, and it is more accurate as well by 0.5 meters. Whoop, there we are, past it. Right, supplies, you're looking at 1,025 for your standard armor piercing, 4,800 for your APCR, which is your premium ammunition, and 608 for your high explosive. Now, equipment wise, because of how I feel this tank has to be played, because it has got 90mm of armour on the front, and we'll have a look at that in a second, but I do feel that unlike the SU-122-44, you do have to play this in much more of a supporting role, unless you can find a good corner where you can sort of hide the right hand side of your tank as we're looking at it, just leave your gun mantle out. I feel that with this tank you do have to, like I say, hang back and play the more traditional tank destroyer role, because even though it's 90mm, which doesn't sound a lot, and it has got a bit of a slope to it, I have found that there isn't much that you come up against that won't penetrate your armour. If they hit your gun mantle, no chance, they will just bounce. It is very, very bouncy gun mantle, and it is quite a large part of the front of the tank. but more or less anywhere else on the tank you are going to get penetrated, I'm afraid, so play it accordingly. Now, skill wise, well, I kind of just, like I say, stick a tank destroyer crew in these premium ones. I don't tend to keep a specific crew in it, but the one I've got in it at the minute, I've got Sixth Sense, Camouflage, Muffled Shot, and I'm working actually on Clutch Braking just to, well, this is actually the crew I normally have in my SU-122-44, which I'm training up for some of the other high tier Russian tank destroyers. So that's why I've gone for clutch braking on it, but it also would help out, when I can talk, it would help out on this as well, as would, well, Green Thumb as well, but you obviously train something else up, a skill, and swap it out for that. Possibly repairs, but I'm not so sure on that one. Definitely something like situational awareness, because, well, the view range is awful, and we'll look at that in a moment as well. Back to the equipment, sorry. That's what I was talking about, and I just completely went off track. Yeah, I've got a gun lane drive on it just to keep that aiming time down slightly. I don't think it needs a gun rammer, although you could put one on if you wanted to. But I've gone for binocular telescopes and a camouflage net. And like I say, I feel that you have to play this in a more traditional tank destroyer role, which is why I went for those pieces of equipment. You have to try and let other people spot for you, or if you can get your spotting up further with, like I say, situational awareness, maybe some premium consumables like the combat rations and the binocular telescope, you could possibly outspot your enemy. But the view range on this is not brilliant, but we'll have a look at the armor figures and all that stuff now. The basic figures are 90 on the front, 90 on the sides, and 60mm on the rear, which again doesn't sound too savage, but it's not particularly well sloped. You can angle it ever so slightly, but not too much. You don't have a massive gun traverse arc. It's not the worst I've seen by far, but it's definitely not the best I've seen. Now, where are we? Reload time is 7.4 seconds, and obviously that's before any equipment. I'm really going off topic. 870 hit points, which is about average for a tier 7 tank destroyer, I think. Maximum speed of 43 kilometers an hour. The engine, it's not the most powerful, but it does get it up there, and you can zip along actually when you pick up a bit of speed. It does feel a little bit sluggish sometimes when you're first starting to get going, but it's definitely not too bad. It's no slouch. Concealment is 0.26 while stationary and 0.16 while moving, which isn't the best. The SU-122, like I mentioned before, I think it's something like 0.36-ish, or 0.34 stationary and something like 0.23 moving, so that gives you an idea of the difference in stealth, but this is a taller, bigger machine. Now your view range is 350 meters, which again is about average for a Soviet machine of this level, but it is quite poor compared to everybody else, and quite a poor signal range at 440 meters. That does sometimes let it down. Now your engine, like I say, 600 horsepower. It's got a power to weight ratio of 13.12, which again isn't too bad, but it's not brilliant. You'll notice it more on hills, but you can get the speed up on flat ground. Like I say, 43 km/h top speed forwards and 12 in reverse, which is a little on the slow side. You are going to have to be careful because you're not going to be able to pull back out of trouble quite as quickly as you may get yourself into it. But quite nicely for a Soviet vehicle, the fire chance on the engine is only 15%. A lot of them are 20%. However, the engine layout is quite strange. You can see there's a big old engine block there at the back, but you've also got a small piece in the front at the lower left hand side as we're looking at it of the hull, and also in the upper right superstructure as we're looking at it. Obviously it's on the left hand side of the tank, so it is quite odd that you can get your engine damaged through that side of your tank, and it does surprise you at first when it happens, because it is a very strange place to get your engine damaged from. Now we have gun depression figures, which is quite nice. It's got an elevation of 18, which isn't too bad actually. It's quite nice, and it's got a depression of -6, which for a Soviet vehicle isn't too bad at all. The SU-122-44 I think is only -4 degrees, so you know it does have it beat on the gun depression. You're not going to be any superb ridgeline fighter. It's no American machine, but certainly it is a little bit of an improvement for a Soviet. Now, terrain resistances. Well, like I say, you've got rotation speed on your hull. A traverse is 27 degrees. Your terrain resistances, and I'm assuming this is hard, medium, soft, and by that I mean hard for roads, etc., you know, good terrain, medium is your fields, soft is what I describe as sort of your bogs and your marshes. So it's 1.1, 1.3 and 2.2, which again are quite average, to be honest. I've been trying to brush up on my terrain resistances, and that does seem like a fairly average terrain resistance. You know, it's not too bad, it's not too good, it's, you know, it's adequate, more than adequate. Like I say, your radio range is quite poor, and that's just down there in the lower left hand side of the upper superstructure as we're looking at the tank. The ammunition blocks, big old ammunition block on the left hand side of the superstructure, and a couple of slightly smaller ones on the other side, on the right hand side. But if you want to take out the ammunition in this, the best place is towards the back of the upper superstructure, and chances are you are going to hit an ammo rack. We also have shell velocity now, which is quite nice. Now your AP are 800 meters a second, APCR are 1000, and your HE are also 800, which isn't too bad. A lot of HE are a lot slower than that. The shell velocities are again about average for this type of gun and this sort of tier, so it sort of, again, it performs quite adequately, but that'll give you an idea of how much or how little you have to lead the target. Obviously the faster the shell flies, the less you have to lead the target. Now, crewmen, you do have 5 crammed in here. You've got your driver down on the lower right side as we're looking, and then you've got the gunner, and I'm assuming the loader, just either side of the gun there, and then in the back, although one of those could be the commander, but you've got 2 guys sat just at the back in between the ammo racks there as well. Now, armour wise, 1 to 20 mil is the underside of the sort of, I don't know, track covers possibly, the bit of the hull that sticks out there. I'm not particularly technical with this, but there you go, and the tracks as well, which will act as a small amount of spaced armour, and the actual base of the hull itself, the floor of the hull, which is new, it didn't have that before. 21 to 30 is the entire top of the engine deck and the top of the superstructure. Also the top of the gun mounting itself, not the mantlet, and that piece of mantle underneath, which I believe, if I remember rightly, is actually spaced armour, but I could be wrong. The gun itself is 31 to 50. 51 to 70, which is around the gun mounting again and just behind the gun mantle itself. The upper plate, which is very well sloped, is also 51 to 70. The rear of the actual upper superstructure itself and the whole rear of the vehicle falls into that bracket as well, and again it would be really nice to have some more accurate figures from Wargaming. Hopefully they will listen and bring those to us at some point. Now 71 to 90, well, the front and sides were supposed to be 90, and according to this it pretty much looks like it is. The entire lower plate is, well, 90. You've got a thin strip across the front there as well, which is also 90, and nearly the whole of the sides of the actual hull itself and the upper superstructure are also 90mm, but they are quite flat, so like I say, there is a lot of things that will get through that armour. 91 to 120, well, that's just around the gun mantle, a thin strip towards the top of the lower front plate, and also just behind, no sorry, that is the gun shield itself, the actual mantle itself. Falls into 91 to 120. This is what I mean about your gun mantle being very, very bouncy. It's very hard to get through that. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen anything do it. And then 121 to 160 is a thin strip just underneath the gun mantle itself, which is one of the thickest points on the actual tank. Now, I think we've just about covered everything there is to do. So, I think enough of me rambling on. Let's get into these replays, shall we? Right, so here we are for the first match. It's a tier 8 match, it's on Fisherman's Bay, and it's a team destruction. Now, this does not get preferential matchmaking, it will see up to tier 9. And me personally, I'm not too sure about that. I possibly think it maybe should have preferential, I don't know. Possibly a bit controversial, and I'm waiting for everybody shouting at me in the comments. But I'm not sure. You see, the rate of fire is good. Well, it's awesome. The penetration is a little lacking in tier 9 matches, and even with your premium ammunition you need to aim for weak spots, and because of the nature of the vehicle with the armour, you've got to stay at a distance and you can't aim for weak spots at that range. There are stuff you can get through, especially if you can get the side of them. Definitely, well, if you can get the side of them. and there's a few you can get through the front with your standard or your premium ammunition, but a lot of the things at tier 9 you are going to struggle with. And even though it's fairly quick, it's not fast or stealthy enough really to outflank, and you don't want to be getting close. In tier 7 matches, you know, you will come up against tier 5s, and some of them you can almost one-shot or potentially one-shot them. And some of them will bounce off you, but not if you're up close. You've got to try and keep your distance a bit, and if you can hide the sort of left-hand side of your tank and as much of you can as with your lower plate as well, especially on some of the city maps where the rubble sticks out on a corner, and just really show your gun mantle and angle slightly so it kind of hides what's left of the upper superstructure on the right-hand side of the tank, if you get my meaning, you can bounce a lot, especially if you stay at range, where they're going to struggle to hit the thin strip of upper superstructure, and 90% of the time they'll hit your gun mantle and bounce off. So, you know, you can get a few bounces. My wife is having to go in this earlier to try and help me with some of this footage, because I'm just not a fan of this tank. I'm not a fan of this particular style of gameplay personally. There are a lot of people who love this tank and they think it's fantastic. I just prefer the 122-44. I prefer the fact that when you're top tier you can really get in there, bounce shots and outmaneuver a lot of the normal tanks because it's so maneuverable. But this is kind of one of the ways how you want to be playing this. Staying at a distance, letting other things spot for you, and just using that really good rate of fire and alpha damage to tear things apart. I mean, at this level, at 390 damage, there's a lot of stuff that you can just two-shot. You know, so you can get rid of opponents quite quickly, and like I say, it does have a very good rate of fire and DPM. But I've had more success playing this tank like this. There are some people that may have had success getting in there a bit and getting a bit closer, but I find that when you're top tier against lower tier stuff, try and keep it at least medium range. And if you're not top tier, anything sort of medium to long range, I would have said is possibly better, but that's my opinion, and that's how I've had more success with this. And as you can see, I've not done too savage so far. Got some assisted damage there, got a bit of damage on my own, but even though I've only done 4 penetrating hits of my own, 390 sort of average damage, it builds up, and you can, well, don't expect anything too special out of these matches, because like I say, I'm not overly good in this tank. I personally don't particularly like it, and I don't really care for its playstyle. But you know, it's you do an alright amount of damage, and like I say, it soon adds up 390 average. And as you can see here, I'm keeping at range, 380 odd meters away. My camouflage net's up, and it was something else that was spotting those, although I think it might be my binoculars that start spotting them shortly. But they've not seen me, and I can just put the shots out at them. Not very well aimed shots, but I can still put the shots out at them. Now while I'm trying to take out that tiger and keeping an eye on that medium coming, tomorrow on the store, the Panzer IV Hydrostat is coming back. I missed out on it last time, but I think I'm going to pick one up this time and possibly review that tomorrow. And the Stug 4 is making another appearance. See, that one bounced from the Type 58, but it hit at a very dodgy angle on the side. I completely miss my return fire, but it's not long before I've got another one loaded. However, it doesn't carry a vast amount of ammunition, so if you get a bit too trigger happy, you can quite easily run out of ammunition. As you can see, my armour piercing are running a little bit low now. Yeah, back to the store. After I completely donked up killing that Type 58. Yeah, the Panzer IV Hydrostat, which I'm not going to miss out on this time, and we'll possibly review tomorrow. And the Stug 4, which I picked up last time it was on the store, and I've actually already done a review of that. So if any of you missed it last time, or missed the review and you're thinking about picking it up, it is in the Tank Reviews playlist for you to go and have a look at. Now, the match is just about over. There's one tank destroyer left, an 88, and I don't think I'm going to get there in time to do anything. But as you can see, you know, this slight incline over the sort of medium ground is not too bad. I keep sort of touching 40 kilometers an hour. And one of the tricks to this, if you can, is to basically get yourself a good vantage point at the beginning of the match where you know there's going to be enemy tanks, or you suspect there's going to be a lot of enemy tanks coming, but you're going to be out of their view range, and you can use your guys to spot for you, and you can just put so much lead down range, it's unbelievable. But I came out of that with just over 2,200 damage done, 3 kills and just under 2,000 assisted damage I think it was, which wasn't a bad match. You know, it's not too bad. I came out top in a tier 8 match, only just tier 8 I think it was. Or was I misleading you? Was that a tier 7 match? I do apologise, it might have been a tier 7 match, that's my fault. Although I could have been wrong on that one. Anyway, next one for you, and this is a very short match, a bit of a spoiler there, it's on Himmelsdorf. It's a tier 7 match, and it's a standard battle, and this is to show you kind of the other side of it. The fact that you can bounce the odd shot, especially off that gun mantle, you will bounce nearly every shot that hits that. And just to show you sort of what can happen when you do get a bit too up close, and this is why I, you know, like I say, I'm just not a fan of the playstyle of this tank. People may have had better luck than I do getting up close in it, but I've had more success keeping it at least medium range and further, preferably further, especially when you're up against your own tier. Tigers, they don't have a problem getting through your armour, and they're accurate enough to hit your superstructure as opposed to your gun mantle most of the time as well, even at range. But that's the trick to this, try and expose as little of your tank as possible. The gun is set to one side slightly, so try and hide that left side of your tank, like I say, and try and hide your lower plate with rubble. And I was a bit slow on going for that Tiger there, and he's actually managed to pull back. I was just a bit slow at basically picking where I was going to go, but I've got a hammer in the rail yard that somebody else is spotting. I'm out of his view range, I think. I'm just going to try and relocate slightly so I've got some better shots at him. Now, yeah, it looks to be definitely, I look to be out of his view range, 402 metres. So other people are spotting, and I can just keep putting shells out at them. But they've now pulled back. And you can see this corner here where the rubble comes down just off the corner. That'd be a fairly good place. You know, that's the sort of place you want to try and find. Like I say, where you can try and hide that lower front plate, try and hide as much of the left of the tank as possible, and just leave your gun mantle sticking out. Now there's a Tiger down here, so I've got to be careful. Well, that hammer's popping back out, and now I'm within view range, so I have been spotted. Luckily missed, and I'm going to pull back, risk another shot. We've got a very similar rate of fire, so I've got to be careful. But I managed to get another hit into him, and he didn't put any more down at me. Well, that other Tiger's coming now, but he looks... You see, I'm not sure what hit me then, because there was another shell that came out that bounced off the gun mantle. That Tiger in front is not fully upgraded. I think he may have the short 88. Oh, managed to take out the Jagdpanther with a nice hit there. And if I remember, the short 88, is that possibly 132 penetration? Although I could be wrong, it could be a bit more on the Tiger, but that one actually bounced from him. So I'm not quite sure where that hit. So you can get a few lucky bounces, but really don't rely on the armour. That's the best advice I can give. Yeah. And then I get a bit close, and an IS just puts an end to me. I'm not even sure where he was. So I have a feeling that Tiger was actually baiting me there, but we'll skip to the end and see how we actually... Well, it came down to a close one, but we just won it. I didn't do a great deal, although, even though I didn't put loads of shots out, I wasn't alive for that long, I still did 2,500 damage. But I came third in that match, but then again, like I say, I did die quite early on. But, like I say, it just shows you how much damage you can do in a short period of time. With this tank, if you're allowed to actually get the shots out and they hit and penetrate. So, last of the replays, and again, it's a tier 7 match. Like I say, I really struggled with this in tier 9 matches, I'm not going to lie, you know, I'll admit to that. It's not my most played tank, in fact I hardly ever play in this tank, and like I've said before, I'm just not that keen on it, and I'm not very good in it. So in tier 9 matches, I really did struggle with it. I tried to stay out of sort of view range, put the shots in, and like I say, unless it had a flank, it just kept bouncing or it just missed altogether. So, you know, I find it a struggle in tier 9 matches because, like I say, you don't have that speed and manoeuvrability to zip around the battlefield, relocate and get on their flank without being seen. You can use the terrain, but it's fairly tall and it's not got the best concealment rating, so a lot of the time I ended up getting spotted as I was trying to relocate, or if I played it a bit too safe, I just took too long getting there and they were either dead when I got there, or the guys that were holding them off had died and they'd moved on. So I've just not had much luck in it. Like I say, it's not the vehicle. You know, it's definitely me. It's not a bad tank, like I say. I'm just not a fan of its playstyle. But I've got to pop out onto the field. I was thinking of going actually further out onto the field and covering the sort of 1-2 line around there, because a lot of tanks normally come that way, but not many seem to come that way, and I end up pretty much sat up here. But again, it's a good position for this. I'm out of the spotting range for a lot of the tanks that are in the town, yet they're getting spotted by teammates, so I can put shots in. And you see, I've just been moaning about accuracy, and then I hit a shot like that where I can see about 2 inches of the turret of the tank. I managed to put it bang on target. Russian accuracy for you folks. Anyway, yeah, so the guys in the towns have been spotted by my teammates. I'm out of view range, and as soon as anything pops out and I've got it there for maybe 10 seconds, I can put a couple of shots in and do a hell of a lot of damage. That T-34-85 has been dealt with. There's a tiger, but I can't quite get a shot. He's on the other side of the town. But there's a hammer popping out of that street. I should be able to get a shot at him. Try and find a good place, and of course I mess up the aiming and it bounces off his gun mantle. And I was just going for the commander's cupola there because there is a bit of a wall in front of him, and it just went miles over. But I managed to put one through the posts, in between them, and hit the tiger that's coming up behind him. Again, Russian accuracy. You gotta love it. And now I'm going to punish that tiger. Will I get another shot off before he disappears? Not quite. So now I'm just going to keep an eye out for anything popping up. There's an M6 pulling back, and I just knock his tracks off, which is typical. Big fat old backside of an M6, and it just knocks his tracks off. And then that one bounced. I didn't see it, but I heard it. It just said it didn't penetrate their armour. And that one ducked down and right slightly and just knocked the tracks off the hammer. I was just looking for another target, but I'm going back to the hammer. And he was still tracked, and I managed to get one through him. I was just waiting to see if I did there. I couldn't quite remember. As he started backing off. So again, I'm, like I say, using teammates to spot for me. I'm just scanning the exits to the town. Anything comes out of there and gets spotted, I can put a shell at it. And a lot of the time, before they back off, you can put another one in. And if you can hit the front drive wheel and keep them tracked, well, you can keep them tracked, especially if they've burnt the repair kit. Your rate of fire is good enough, as long as they've not got the track mechanic. I don't think you've got quite as enough rate of fire to do it then, if they've got repairs and track mechanic, but generally you do have enough of rate of fire to keep them pinned. I was a bit slow against that tiger there, but the hammer pops out and I managed to finish him off. And now the tiger's just, he's thought better of it. He's just seen the hammer explode where he was about to pop out and just thought, do you know what? No, bugger it, I'm backing off. And now he's been dealt with, and all we've got left are 2 enemy heavies. And I've got all my health left, so I am more than safe to move into the town and try and track 1 or 2 of them down and do a bit extra damage. I can definitely take a couple of hits, and with the rate of fire on this, I would imagine that I'll get 2 shots off before they do. So it's a pretty safe bet. I should be able to, fingers crossed, survive this match, as long as I don't do anything too stupid. Alright, so we're down to just an enemy T-29, but he is on fairly full health. or almost full health, should I say. Oh, while I'm tracking him down, quick update to the update. It wasn't Wargaming's launcher, it was Microsoft's update launcher apparently. There's the T29. I managed to put one into him. So just quickly, it was Microsoft's update launcher. Apparently it is fixed now. That's the latest from Wargaming on the forums. But with tomorrow being a holiday in the States, there's a chance that it might not be till next week now for the Xbox platforms. Anyway, back to this. 2,312 damage done. Again, not the best, but it was just enough to come top of the table. And like I say, I'm not the best player in this, but you know, at least now you guys can see what it's about, how it plays, and see whether it's going to be for you. So, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you found it entertaining, seeing me being rubbish in the Tank Destroyer. But anyway, I'll be back tomorrow, probably with a Hydra stat review, and as always, take care out there, and I'll catch you next time. See you later.